The concert band is going to give you a little bit of the stories of war life. Everything from the patriotic to the pop culture to the devastation of war. Before each piece, we will have a short video. A couple of them are old newsreels. One of them is an old propaganda film from the United States, and I will introduce all of those before they happen. But one of the things I want to make sure you know and understand is that war is a complicated thing. And as we've had conversations in our classes here with all the teachers in the social studies department and here in our music ensembles, we've talked about how art has played that role of communicating those things. And I talk a lot about those connections we get to make as artists all the time. One of the great things we get to do is communicate to other people something that someone else has created for us to do, or something we've created for us to communicate. But either way, that communication comes across to each individual set of ears in a different way. Each listener brings to it a different perspective. And that difference in perspective is important, as we all have very different backgrounds. And sometimes it's something as we get through busy lives and we get to working hard and stressing out, we forget those things. So as we go through this section of the concert, I want you to remember that each of us brings some type of bias whenever we listen or enjoy, or we work, or we communicate. And it's these things that make our individual artistic experience and what makes these types of performing ensembles really so wonderful for us to have. So we start this second half of this with a great Irving Berlin classic in God Bless America.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking for the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Japan has therefore undertaken a surprise offensive extending throughout the Pacific area. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. People of the United States have already formed their opinions and will understand the implications to the very life and safety of our nation. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God.
This is my favorite part. Now the next tune we're going to play for you is Aaron Copland's Hoedown. And Hoedown was part originally of Copland's ballet, Rodeo. And Rodeo was about a young cowgirl who was a tomboy. And just like all these stories go, this young tomboy cowgirl wanted to fit in. And she wanted to fit in so hard. She tried to learn all the dancing, tried to learn some of the lingo, and tried to get in with the in crowd. Hoedown, it focuses on the dance. And at the dance, this young cowgirl dances her life out. And she just goes all out for it. And one of the things this thing is about is that American spirit of whatever you are, whatever individual you may be, you can succeed if you work, work, and work. That young cowgirl had that drive to succeed, and she did by the end of the ballet. And this part of American culture and this pop infusion into the world was very common. We saw it all over the place. As people would go to movie theaters to get educated about news, and they saw newsreels. They would watch cartoons and get entertained. They would watch movies and be entertained. None of this stopped during the war. Hollywood continued to make films. Nothing seemed to stop. Pop culture continued to develop. And one of those things that developed was Walt Disney. What you're about to see is a short section of a Disney propaganda film featuring my favorite cartoon, Donald Duck.
The average worker live two separate personalities. One, the thrifty.
You wait a bit, laddie. You're going to save a bit of that, aren't you?
Oftentimes, idle money burns a hole in your pocket, which brings out the other personality. The spendthrift.
Hi, big chap. Come on with me. I'll show you how to spend your dough. I got a couple of good beats.
But laddie, I've got some better dates.
Important ones, too. When every American should pay his or her income tax, gladly and proudly. This year, thanks to Hitler and Hirohito, taxes are higher than ever before. Will you have enough money on hand to meet your payments when they fall due?
I'll take care of that later. Forget it.
But you don't know what to forgive our fighting men, do you?
No, sir.
Then you'll have to start saving right away to meet your tax payments.
Listen, chap. Spend it. It's your dough.
Yeah, it's my dough.
Aye, laddie, it's your dough, but it's your war, too. You must save for victory.
What's money for? Spend it. Shoot the works.
Nay, you must save it.
Spend.
Save!
Spend, save, spend, save, spend, save, spend, save, spend, save, spend, Well, now what are you going to do? Spend for the Axis or save for taxes? Just remember, every dollar you spend for something you don't need is a dollar spent to help the Axis. That's right. And every dollar you sock away for taxes is another dollar to sock the Axis. For it is your taxes, my taxes, our taxes that run the factories.
next piece you're about to hear really explores a side of war we tend to try and ignore. This is something that really does still continue. Most of the time when we think of war, we think of the victors, we think of the history. In pop culture, we think of people like Superman and Captain America. But on the end of war, on the other side of war, there are casualties. And this happens in any war, in any conflict. Repeat performance already. And one of the things that is truly amazing about music and the arts is we don't forget. And we get to continue to remind people like you in this room today that there are all sides of a spectrum. And to help us share in that tonight, we have Dr. Renning, who survived the attack in February of 1945 in Dresden, Germany, as the Allies chose to bomb over 2 days a German town. So please welcome Dr. Renning as he introduces the story behind the Dresden attack.
As you heard, the reason I'm here is that I'm a survivor of the bombings of the city of Dresden in 1945. February 13 and 14, 1945. Those are dates which are imprinted on my mind. I will never forget them because those were the scariest days in my whole life. I was a German kid. I had just arrived in Dresden as a refugee from the eastern part of Germany, and then the bombing started at around 10 o'clock on the 13th of February. The first attack, then the second attack started during the night around 1 o'clock, and the third attack started the following morning around 11 o'clock. And it was a scary experience, as you can imagine, or maybe you cannot imagine it, because one really has to experience it to know what it's like to sit in an air raid shelter, the basement of an old apartment building. That was our air raid shelter. And to hear the bombs drop around one, and hope that nothing will happen that will be a direct hit where you are sitting. I am honored to be able to introduce the next piece of this concert, the Symphony No. 1 by Daniel Buchwich, entitled In Memoriam Dresden 1945. Thank you.
once again, I need to thank you all for coming and enjoying this. We're doing this event for the first time. This is definitely a very collaborative effort, and I can tell you that these students have worked beyond my imagination to get where they're at today. And I can't thank the students on this stage enough, and the students that are on stage for the jazz band, for all of the amount of work and energy they put into putting on these performances tonight and tomorrow night. What I can say is, if you've enjoyed these performances, please continue to support all of the arts. And I can tell you, as someone who's been a student performer, and a professional musician, and a teacher, and a composer, having people enjoy your art, or just experience it, is some of the greatest things you can feel at any level of being an artist. And I can truly say that the students on stage are my fellow musicians and my fellow colleagues in this great art of music. So, to you, I thank you. Now, I again want to take this time to thank everyone who helped in putting this together, all of the Johansen High School faculty and administration who put in their support, who helped put up artwork, who helped in any way, shape, or form. There are so many people to thank. One of the people I want to make sure I give a shout out to is the person who's responsible for us having the 38-foot by 20-foot American flag you see on stage, and that is Vicki Mitchell, who knew exactly which cabinet it was that this flag was stored in, as it hasn't been used in some years. As well, I have to thank the Social Studies Department in particular, not only for the amount of work they did in their classes to get students to understand the curriculum and history and its importance in our daily lives now, but as well, on a more personal note, there is a computer in the back of the room that is currently recording the concert, and that computer is kind of lent to me as it's from 2005. It's an old iMac, but the Social Studies Department said, hey, yeah, you can use it, we aren't using it. And without that, it would be really hard to record our concerts, and this is something I have to thank them for personally. Once again, though, I want to make sure that all of those that have served in our military, as well as the families of those who have served in the military, as we know, serving in anything is always a family endeavor, as even teachers find that out. But in the military, it is especially hard because the distance is there, the stress level is there, the unknown is there. So once again, I ask that all of our vets stand to be acknowledged, and I want to acknowledge someone who is already enlisted and is set to deploy for basic training next fall. One of our own performers on stage, as well as all the vets in the audience, but our future veteran on stage, which is Deanna Rabiosi. So may you all please stand. Thank you one more time. Now, it would not be a concert with a big old American flag in the back of the stage without thinking back to our great March master and John Philip Sousa. And Sousa's band, something that people forget about, is Sousa was famous for going to Europe and finding all the new music their composers were writing, and he memorized it while listening to the concert, and then on the boat ride or whatever he would get back, he would write it all out for his band to play. So he was like, man, this music in Europe is great, I want my bands to play. And then he would take his band anywhere, and at times his bands would rival over 200 members. And they would perform anywhere and everywhere, march down any and every street. And his great Marine Corps band still has the reputation of being the best band in our nation's history, and kind of an example for how wind ensembles would then run and operate. So we end this concert with his greatest march in most eyes and ears, as well as the one that is our nation's march. And that is, of course, Stars and Stripes Forever.
America waited out World War II's last tense hours. At the White House, President President Truman, State Secretary Burns, and Cornell Hall stood by for the momentous surrender message from the Japanese. Radio men, sound and camera crews of worldwide newsreels kept vigil with Washington reporters. Then, after tantalizing hours of rumors and guesses, came the President's historic announcement, August 14, 1945.
I have received this afternoon a message from the Japanese government in reply to the message forwarded to that government by the Secretary of State on August 11th. I deem this reply a full acceptance of the Potsdam Declaration, which specifies the unconditional surrender of land. In the reply, there is no qualification.
The greatest news story of all time. Final unconditional surrender with the whole world waiting to celebrate PJHS. In every town and hamlet across the nation, the story was the same. Chicago heard the news, and a hurricane of unrestrained hilarity blew through the windy city. This was how San Francisco greeted the news. The city by the Golden Gate engulfed in a tide of joy and relief. America's major port of embarkation to the war on the Pacific, the Japanese surrender brought jubilation unrestrained. Clang, clang, clang went the trolley. The Victory Special rolled down Market Street with everybody celebrating. All were shipmates on that memorable day, and the Navy salute made it official. The Victory flash electrified Times Square, key to the bursting point as the magic word of complete surrender came through. It was the long-awaited moment, and the lid was off. Unparalleled were the scenes as multitudes surged around this liberty, throwing restraint to the winds. Mightiest city marked the end of World War II in one tremendous shout of joy and gladness. Snowshoes were needed to blaze a trail through streets buried in the biggest paper and ticker tape blizzard in history. Into the night, the great white blade thundered with the exuberance of exploding emotion. Thus did VJ Day go into history.
Once again, thank you so very much for coming out. And if you enjoyed tonight, tell all your friends, come back again tomorrow night. And of course, continue to support the arts. Thank you again so very much for coming out. And I hope to see you all again soon.